So after resurrecting this channel in the past spring with a lot of NFL draft content, I think it would be a shame to shy away from that because as we get closer to April, I'm going to lean heavily into NFL draft content, and I decided why not start with the first weekend of college football and have a Sunday scouting report. Basically, just go over some of the players that I watched and some of the games that I watched. So there you go. That's what the point is. So welcome to the video. All right, so not a lot of big time names are available to watch right now, as the Big Ten and the Pac 12 are both on hiatus temporarily. And it was discussed that there could have been a vote today for the Big Ten to return to play, but as of this recording, that has not happened. So the Big Ten is still in limbo. The Pac 12, I have really heard nothing about it. I live in the Midwest, so I don't hear too much, and even some of the reporters that I follow haven't really discussed too much about the Pac 12 returning to play. It's been all Big Ten for some reason. So, with that in mind, there unfortunately is going to be a lot less to talk about because we're not going to be getting Big Ten players. And there's a lot of them that are really good this year that figure to be first round picks. So, it's tough. We're all adjusting still. But anyway, the games that I watched, starting with Clemson and Wake Forest, hard to turn away from the final season of Trevor Lawrence as the quarterback for the Clemson Tigers. So I decided to tune into that, and it was about what you would expect. Trevor Lawrence looks far and above the rest of the quarterback field for this draft, and it is unfortunate because Justin Fields is one of those quarterbacks who is probably QB2 in this upcoming draft, and we're not going to get to see him play, at least not right now. But Trevor Lawrence looked pretty smooth. He had a lot of amazing throws, finished the game with 351 yards and a touchdown. Not really much more you could say. I was kind of surprised that he didn't opt out, sort of like, what else do you have to prove? But if he's going to continue to give us performances like this, throughout the ACC games, why not? Let's go for it. Moving on to his teammate, Travis Etienne, had 102 yards and a touchdown. Yes, it was against Wake Forest, and yes, they don't have the world's most prolific defense, and we're not talking a playoff caliber team here. But at the same time, having knocked all the cobwebs and rust off, he looked fantastic, and he's going to be definitely, I want to say, probably the first running back off the board. Maybe not in round one. I'm still not very fond of drafting running backs in the first round. Sometimes it works out. More often than not, it's not the right pick in terms of value and need. So what have you. That is my argument against running backs that shouldn't be picked in the first round. Also in the game for Wake Forest, the Wake Forest Clemson game, Carlos Basham Jr. had 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Dude is a monster. Definitely in the top 25 of draft eligible players right now. Can't talk. And maybe one day I probably should build a big board, I guess. Do a top 25. I probably won't do a top 50. That's just too much work. Too much work for doing this for free. So probably do a top 25. And I would probably include him in there somewhere, probably in the early 20s, late teens, if you will. But he looks as advertised. As far as a player that did not do so well over the weekend, and that title goes to Brock Purdy from Ohio State when they ended up losing to Louisiana. 145 yards, an interception, losing to a smaller non-Power 5 school. That is trouble, and it's interesting because a lot of people had discussed this could potentially be the fourth or maybe even the third quarterback off the board. Third quarterback unlikely, given the fact that everybody is all over Trey Lance at this point. But there was this outside discussion that he could potentially work himself into the late first round, and I think that has yesterday's performance has hurt him immensely. So going forward, it's going to be tough to keep an eye on him, but I'm still going to do it, as is, with the Big 12 actually having a season. Another quarterback that I'd like to talk about, Chase Brice, not blowing the roof off of the stadium and not the world's most incredible performance that we need to talk about right now. But still, somebody who was spent 2 years at Clemson, plays for Duke now, had a pretty nice game against Notre Dame, 259 yards, no scores, no mistakes. But it's against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame figures to be in contention for the national championship every year. Duke, not so much. And we've had a quarterback come out of Duke in Daniel Jones 2 years ago. The jury's still out on him, but at the same time, Chase Brice, given his background, given his week 1 performance against Notre Dame, somebody that wasn't on my radar 2 days ago, suddenly now is. Will he be anything of, interest when it comes draft time? No, probably not. We're probably looking at probably a late day 3 pick 6th round maybe as a project quarterback, if you will, if, things get better for him. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, Ahmed Samuel Jr., who is absolutely one of the secondary players that I'm looking forward to scouting this year because I love corners and safeties. It's one of my favorite things to look for in the draft, and he had a really good game. 4 tackles, 2 interceptions. The bloodline is talented, and he is the next one. And it just sucks that he plays for Florida State. It's just a bad team. Losing to Georgia Tech after they've decided, hey, we want to be like the rest of the world and have a modern offense. It's just weird. So unfortunate for him. Florida State's probably not going anywhere this year, but he is definitely going in the first round of the NFL draft next year. And then finally we move on to Oklahoma, who absolutely obliterated Missouri State. Spencer Rattler, I'd just like to discuss him for a minute. Is he draft eligible? No, but I feel like after that debut, we need to talk about him because we're going to be for the next 2 years. 290 yards, 4 touchdowns, didn't even play in the second half. That's how good he is. And the touchdown passes that he threw were absolute dimes. So very excited to see how he goes from here. And it's just another quarterback being churned out by Oklahoma. The real prospect that I was watching, well, not real prospect, the prospect that was draft eligible that I was watching was Creed Humphrey. No real statistical analysis to give you other than the fact that he just looked big and strong. And the interior offensive line is something that I'm always looking for coming from a Vikings fan, go figure. And I thought maybe if he would declare last year, declare early, he would be able to be a top 15, top 20 pick. Didn't happen. He went back to school, probably a good thing. And he's definitely going to solidify himself, I believe, as the one of the top offensive linemen off the board, especially for the interior. So that is going to do it for this Sunday edition of Prospect Scouting, if you will. And looking forward to the next weekend's group of games. Hopefully the Big Ten comes back. They're able to do it right. I know there's some huge concerns about the heart issue being with the athletes. I've read some studies that they've done out of Penn State, and that's probably what scared them into canceling the season. And the Pac-12 called and was like, "Hey, why did you cancel?" And they're probably like, "Oh, okay, this is bad. We got to do this too." So, I just hope everybody can stay safe. I want all the football to come back that we can, but just make sure that they can do it in a safe way. I would really like to watch some Minnesota football this year. So far, I haven't been able to do that. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.